Hey everybody, just Gas here coming at you with a Blaze tier list. This is just a little pet project I've been working on, something to cater towards new players, just so they know like a tier list, because there is no really formal tier list I could find on the internet that is even somewhat correct, so hopefully this will help you out. Also, yes, all these placements are subjective and all that shit, but I do have 600 hours in the game along with a decent amount of tourney experience, and I do think every character in this game is viable, but there are some characters that certainly outshine others. If you disagree with a placement or a statement, just tell me to fuck off in the comments or something. Alright, let's go. Alright, so starting off with S tier, we got Switch. Switch is my main, and he's probably the best character in the game at this given point in time. With a lot of tourneys happening online, Switch really dominates if the ping is above 100. With a neutral angle that goes behind him, you can endlessly pass the ball to yourself, force your opponents to approach, check their positioning, or force a tab charge in some scenarios. Because it's just like, dude, it's a brutal angle. Second thing that makes him so good is the infamous switch flip. At first glance, you hit the ball, hit your special, and the ball goes in a wacky, funny angle that catches people off guard. Cool, right? Well, if you hit your taunt key midair, you can do a kickflip that releases the ball instantaneously, that you can release in either direction. This leaves very little time for your opponent to react, if any at all, especially on lag, and combine that with his angles that you can like force to revolve back to yourself to force a switch flip mix-up, you got yourself a really solid character. Alright, next up is Candyman. I hate Candyman, so I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible. His neutral angles, if they're able to get a rotation in, are absolutely horrifying to play against, and his down angle in general is just absolutely terrifying if you're out of position. His spike also has the best frame data in the game, which is good for catching low to the ground balls in my experience, or just against a cornered opponent. His special, it's not as good as Switch's, but it's pretty phenomenal. Being able to chain it just by hitting, along with being able to actually parry it if your opponent goes for an interruption, it's just like, damn man. He's also got wall teleport, and even though I haven't seen plenty of candies use it, if you've seen a player like Giant Rat play before using teleport aggressively to like its max potential, it's one of the most butt-clenching things you have to play against in the game, easily. Alright, next up we got Sonata. So Sonata might actually be a candidate for best character in the game if more tournaments happened on LAN or offline, but since most stuff is online, she's going to be sitting in third, still on the podium. Sonata only has 3 angles really, but even with that limitation, she can dispense pain. Her up angle is good for forcing tab charge. Her back spike is just like fucking crazy. I mean, if you're a new player, have fun covering that. Seriously. Down angle though is pretty lackluster, not being able to confirm 100% of the time off of parry like some other characters. However, you can make up for this if you're near the corner by specialing. Speaking of that, she's got a special that can throw off any opponent if they don't choose to interrupt it, and she's got a triple jump, which is pretty nifty while comboing. Her special also lets her parry bait and allows you to do charge setups pretty easily, so with that knowledge, you've got a character that can shine among the best in the hands of a good player. Moving on to Raptor, and I'm not going to stay on Raptor for too long, since the reason why he's such a good character to me and any other player is because how good his special is. Being able to instantly release the ball in any direction you choose, along with how long you can hold on to the ball before release is pretty wild. Very easy to perform too. All you need is 3 bars, catch the ball however you want, and then boom, mix up. Even not using your special as a mix-up if you have the meter, honestly. Other than that, angles are good, nothing out of this world with the exception of grounded down angle, solid character. Alright, we got Doombox. Doombox is without a doubt the most unorthodox character in the game. He can fly instead of jump, which is obviously amazing for mid-air ball control, and being the largest character in the game, he can challenge practically anything with ease. Personally, I think he has the best stage presence in the game too, besides a Candyman with good teleport knowledge. His size is a double-edged sword though, well, kind of obviously, because you can get parried and headshot easier than other characters. His angles are good though, both neutral angles being decently sharp, and he's got pretty good spike angles. However, his special out of a hit is probably one of the worst in the game, and it's really only used for ball control since you can bunt out of it. On the ground though, his push box, being the only special in the game that can actually interact with your opponent, can push and interrupt your opponent when they're close to you, which of course can score your stock if done properly. Moving on to Grid, and I'll be honest, Grid is a little bit weird. I don't see many grids, so my knowledge of the character isn't as high as the others, but I can certainly say he deserves to be S tier. All of his angles are just absolutely insane. He forces tap charges like crazy, if you don't want to guess at least. And his smash, like the best smash angle in the game, along with dice. Very, very good for new players. Grid special is also very good. Just being able to mix up an opponent by teleporting or bunting out a special into another one of his deadly angles. You can even charge him up using your meter if you crouch and jump at the same time, which allows your next hit to be instantaneous and launch the ball with the power of a smash. Just don't sleep on him. He's a pretty good character. So we're going to move down to A tier, and the character that is almost S tier, but just not quite, is Nitro. And I'll be honest, when I first started playing Blaze, I thought Nitro was a top 4 character, and that's for pretty good reason. I think he's probably the worst character to have to play against for newer players, or for a player who doesn't like defense at all like myself, since the special near guarantees ball control. Nitro is also an absolute menace at lower speeds, having the best cheese out of the whole cast, like, without a doubt. His angles are quite good too. He's got the same up angle as Sonata, and his down angle is a little sharper, which is really good for confirming off a parry. So yeah, overall, good character. Alright, Dice. Dice is also another weird one, since the Dice I run into is either a new player who only smashes or a complete god who just knows the ins and outs of the game and will bend you over and wipe your ass out. His angles are good, not great. His up angle basically forces you to position near him, and his down angle has decent kill power, but not as much as the other characters above him. His special is where we get into it though. Being able to curve the ball anywhere on the stage if you're good enough is pretty powerful, but being between you and the ball, this is where you want to be, because it forces a mix-up. There's also a frame perfect glitch you can do with his special in the top corner of a stage that is near impossible to catch if you don't see it coming, but with how hard it is to do, it's not practical enough to move Dice up a slot. Alright, B tier. And these characters still have 1 tournaments. Just so you know, all these characters in B tier still have 1 tournaments. So starting off with Jet. And Jet, in my opinion, is very close to A tier, but can't make it there just because of her poor angles. They just lack kill power, and in a game where taking stocks away from your opponent is like how you win, yeah, that sucks. Bubble, her special, however, can fix this problem somewhat with its flexibility. You can use it to screw over an aggressive player, secure ball control, or use it as a timing mix-up by only bubbling once, or not hitting the ball after the second bubble, and so on and so forth. Like a player like Manticore, Jet can seem like an unstoppable force, but once you figure out how to work around her weaknesses, she isn't nearly as bad as the characters placed above her. Alright, Toxic. I honestly think Toxic and Dust are tied for this position, but I'm going to put Toxic above Dust in the tier list, since I got some Toxic buddies in the community who absolutely just kick ass. I'm going to be biased for this, and I'm not sorry. Toxic's angles are very similar to Raptor's, so they're not bad, but nothing like really good. Her spray though I think is a lot better than people think, and don't get me wrong, if you just hit the ball into the special every single time, it's complete ass. But if you use it for timing mix-ups by playing around it, defense by sitting in it, which can counter every single angle by the way, if done properly, or if you just let it sit someplace so the opponent constantly has to worry about it, then I think it actually can be quite good. Just not as offensive as other specials. Still though, characters above her outshine her due to kill power alone, but in terms of looking cool, Toxic's up there. Also, before I move on, for wall tech, I think wall tech can be a little bit useful, but if you overdo it, it's kind of useless. With that said, moving on to Dust and Ashes. Dust, in my opinion, has the best angles in the game, really enough said. Now, if you're new, you might be thinking, gosh, if he has the best angles in the game, why is Dust so low? Well, it's because the special is the worst thing to be introduced to the game. It is awful, and it's hard to put into words how awful it is, because it really is that terrible. You can only control Ashes through height, and you can't even swing or bunt during your specials since you use Ashes to hit the ball in the first place. So every time you use your special, you're essentially frame trapping yourself, if the opponent is right next to you at least. Still though, with angles as good as Dust, he can keep up with the characters above him, like, without a doubt. Finally, we got Latch. Now, before I start on Latch, yeah, he's viable, but he's certainly difficult to win with at a higher level. His angles are bad, and I'm talking like bad enough, so that on each stage, there is a place called the Latch Zone, where if you go there and tap charge properly, you can catch every single angle that Latch can throw out. On top of that, his special isn't even that good either. It's really a worse version of Raptor's special in my opinion, and if you try to throw it out while you're on the ground, you can get down bunted and lose your stock just immediately. With all these negatives, there's a positive though, and that's if your opponent isn't on your ass while you got the ball in your special. It can be deadly because he has a switch flip angle. Alright, so that was my tier list. Hope it helped. Later.